my deep gratitude to the Ministry of Textiles for participating in CIS conference on driving India towards the USD $5 trillion mark and encouraging us, because the textile industry is slated to play an important role in achieving this really stretched target. I would especially like to thank our Honorable Minister, Smriti Irani ji, for taking our time and joining us here at the platform. Madam, it is your dynamic leadership that has given a new boost to the textile and apparel industry. And I can talk of two things immediately which have happened. One, for the first time, I can remember in my somewhat long tenure in our industry, that different, often worrying segments of the value chain have come together to represent their problems, at least their common problems, on in a common forum rather than pulling in different directions. And also for the first time, I see a tremendous alignment between the minister and the entire Ministry of Textiles, who are willing to be in the front lines and fight for our problems in the textile or apparel industry. These last 2 years have been very important to us, and the personal intervention of our minister in ensuring a long overdue refund of embedded taxes to this industry was highly appreciated. The ROSCTL scheme, announced only for the apparel and made-ups industry on the 7th of March 2019, has been a huge encouragement to our industry. Having said that, madam, you know the problem we have faced, that it is perhaps unparalleled to see a government which validly prides itself on being decisive and on focusing on the improvement in the increase of in the ease of doing business, being so vacillating when it comes to actual implementation of a notification which came out on the 7th of March. So even almost 7 months later, we are yet to see the notifications light of day, and we hope that with your involvement and the sustained involvement of the ministry, something will happen on this. I understand that refund under TUFs is now being streamlined and has now restarted after a gap of the entire scheme and the entire implementation of the scheme was being redone. We would again request our Secretary Textiles if he could please look at the legitimate concerns of our industry, because even today a number of the execution measures for TUF remain on paper. The high-powered committee set up under the chairmanship of the Secretary Textiles to encourage investments and sourcing has tremendous potential to change the face of the Indian textile and apparel industry going forward. And so we resolve that we will do our best to assist every effort of the government in this very important dimension. We had an AmCham delegation, which is the American Chamber of Commerce from Hong Kong, which visited us a few months back, and they returned terrifically excited by the potential which India represents. But more important, I think for them the real turning point was the meeting which was organized for them in the Ministry of Textiles, where our minister attended, our secretary attended, and the top brass of the Ministry of Textiles and Commerce also were there. They went back with a very clear understanding and impression that this government means business, and a lot of them are reworking their plans of increasing their sourcing from India. Ma'am, the program SURE, announced under your guidance, has been a source of pride, a source of comfort to brands, and we are sure this will help Indian textiles and apparel industry to be both conscious and compliant, besides being competitive. We have large manufacturing capacities in India across the complete manufacturing value chain, and thus we have a unique double advantage of being able to service the export sector as well as the large domestic consumption available in India. CII has an active National Committee on Textiles and Apparel, which works closely with both the government and industry to boost the sector's global competitiveness. and in fact, specifically ensuring competitiveness in this important heritage industry is a very important function of what CII is doing, and a very important thing which everybody in the textile value chain needs to focus on. And while we're talking of building competitiveness in the industry, I would also like to talk about CII's partnership with the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, that is OECD, with whom we are working closely in ensuring responsible business conduct across the entire value chain. We have already conducted 3 roundtables with 2 key markets, particularly for our labor-intensive manufacturing industries, and the 2 key markets being the European Union and the US. India needs to strike FTAs or PTAs with these key markets, whereby India can leverage these markets for such industries, including apparel. The last few weeks in particular have shown some interesting media reports coming in both from the EU side and from the Honorable Minister of Commerce's side, where there is the Indo-EU FTA, which was considered to be dead in the water for the last so many years, again is showing some signs of revival. To address the issues of dispersed value chains, which is what the Indian textile and apparel industry suffers from, which leads to fragmentation, the loss of labor productivity, of the textile apparel value chains in places specially designed to enable competitive manufacturing, located so that they're close to ports, so that you can work on speed to market. This can be done in collaboration with large private industries in the value chain, where the government can play a role of facilitator, perhaps organizing even special cluster-focused rules of engagement in terms of laws. And these strong clusters would also attract the best talent, the best technology, and the best manufacturing practices. CII is already engaged with using the CII Centers of Excellence, aligning them with these clusters, so we could gain by best manufacturing practices which are happening across the industry, but which could be tweaked or tailored to suit the textile and apparel industry. In order to improve India's competitiveness on the softer aspects, like turnaround time, like product diversification, like innovation, it is necessary to integrate more closely with global value chains. More aggressive efforts are needed on the part of promotional bodies and associations to build a brand India, target new markets, and attract more foreign direct investment into the sector, which would also help in this regard. And again, I'm happy to say that the Ministry of Textile is already off the mark on this, and they are already engaged at the highest level. The Secretary of Textiles himself shared the meetings to ensure brand India promotion internationally. Ma'am, a very oft-repeated aspect which we have talked about, and something which has so much relevance today, because India, given what is happening with China, there is a terrific opportunity for India to capture market share. But to align India, the textile apparel chain, to the international pattern of fiber consumption, we need to promote the man-made fiber industry in India, and at least end the discrimination against man-made fibers by adopting a fiber-neutral taxation regime. And this is something which we have oft discussed. There's actually been very little debate on it because it's largely been agreed. But what is really required is implementation on the ground. Currently, GST on cotton textiles is 5%, and that of man-made fiber is 18%. And this kind of duty inversion is across the MMF value chain, and this discrepancy needs to be removed. Industry needs to focus on value-added exports, leveraging innovation, sustainability, and lower turnaround time, leading to speed to market. All very, very important competitive variables in today's extremely competitive industry. While greater orientation to the man-made fiber, creation of clusters, and higher FDI will be important drivers of such a focus, all government initiatives, such as, or interventions, such as market support initiatives, technology upgradation, need to be aligned to this focus. Building brand India we need marketing efforts to showcase India as a manufacturing destination and supplying of AAA quality products at competitive pricing based by excellent service and excellent support and always based by responsible manufacturing. Organizing mega exhibitions for textile, apparel and hopefully textile machinery, setting up design studios, showcasing the entire textile and apparel value chain capabilities will help in achieving this goal, and government is already engaged in working on each of these areas. Madam, we are honored to have your presence amongst us today. This industry has the potential to improve employment and improve exports, which are two critical driving factors for our economy. As the day progresses, we will have the privilege to listen to some renowned thought leaders in our industry from across the textile value chain on matters relating to aligning the Indian value chain with global demand, the investment opportunities in different states, how we can encourage and how we can leverage the competitive federalism which we are seeing in India today, the amalgamation of process and technology to strengthen industry position, how we can take the heritage of the Indian textile industry to globally and build global brands based on this unique proposition which we have in India, how we can fashionize the weave, can design play a lead role in promoting industry, how do we build a conscious, competitive and compliant value chain. Ma'am, we'll be happy to note that we have put up a small exhibition of the handloom industry to mainstream the industry.
Yeah, fiber, the textile contributes almost 2% of the GDP, so it's quite critical, and 45 million people work directly in the textile industry, 55 million people work indirectly, so altogether we are talking about 100 million people who are connected to textile, and we need to continue growing in our efforts to increase where we are today. I think government had an aspiration, and all of us as industry also had the aspiration that we must increase our existing textile from where we are today, from $150 billion to $350 or $400 billion. And what we are expecting is around $250 billion will come from the domestic market, and remaining $100 billion should come from the export market. I think this US-China trade war has given us the opportunity, and industry needs to capture some of the space vacated by China from US exports, and we must pick up some of the portion of that export into Indian export. I think a lot of people talk about textile industry, we are not doing well, etc., etc. But let me be very honest to myself and say, compared to the rest of the industry, whether you take steel industry, whether you take consumer industry, I think textile industry is generally doing reasonably well, and I think we need to continue progressing where we are today. I think overall exports, if you look like India still has a small percentage of the total exports in textile. I think we were in 2010, we were $28 billion, today we are $38 billion. Whereas, I think interestingly, small country like Vietnam had $14 billion in 2010, and today they are ahead of us of $39 billion. So small country like Vietnam also has surpassed India's export. If you take into account Bangladesh, it had an export of $17 billion in 2010, and today they are $34, $35 billion. So I think we have to learn something from them also. The other issue which we need to address is, I think a lot of things have been spoken about, the imports taking place from Bangladesh, fabric coming from China to Bangladesh, and indirectly fabric being exported through garmenting industry to India. So I'm sure government is doing required corrective measure to see that Indian industry is not put into some imbalanced position. I think India needs to also improve the value-added product. So I don't think we should concentrate only on either export of yarn, fiber or grey fabric. I think India needs to concentrate on high value added product and especially high value added product in garmenting industry. I think we are blessed with all raw material at our end, and we have refining capacity, we have xylene, we have paraxylene, PTA, polyester, viscose, wool. So all possible raw material is available. So I think Indian textile industry need to concentrate and capture the advantage what we have today by having all the raw material within India, whereas China is still exposed to import of cotton, import of monoethylene glycol, import of paraxylene, etc. So I think we need to capitalize on availability of the raw material. I think industry needs to concentrate on 4.0, we call it textile 4.0, which is being talked. It is more like a buzz point, but I think we need to materialize this into a factual happening. And industry needs to concentrate on research and development. Industry needs to concentrate on supply chain management. Industry needs to concentrate on timely delivery of the orders, which are one of the concerns from all the international buyers, whether they will get the supply on time, whether they will get the supply as per the specification, whether the contracts will be honored or not. So here we as an industry need to manage and see that we supply product on time as per specification and honor the contracts from our point of view. I think government has been giving a lot of export incentives and other things, so maybe I think we as an industry needs to concentrate beyond that and not only look for assistance from government, but become more competitive in our own system and produce products which are as competitive as some part of the world and still supply the product to the global market. I think the other issue which we always spoke about the sustainability. So I think this sustainability has again become another buzzword. I think we as an industry are doing a lot of work. I was telling Mr. Ravi Kapoor that the jacket I am wearing is produced out of the PET bottles which have been produced and crushed into the granules and converted into fiber and then woven with blended with the worsted suiting and then produced on the jacket. So we ourselves are working on sustainability. Today, India, you should be knowing that almost 75 to 80% of the PET bottles are recycled and converted into fiber to PET recyclable bottle to next stage of fabric. So compared to the rest of the world where 30% of the PET is recycled, where in Europe it is 40-45%, but India we have done a lot of progress because I don't think we should consider this as a CSR activity only. It has to become like a business model. You are giving employment to the rag picker who converts, so he picks up the bottles, goes into the wholesaler, he buys that bottle so that you are giving employment to the rag picker, and then this goes to the industry for crushing and then cleaning and then recycling and then supplied to the spinning industry for converting it to textile. So I think sustainability will become one of the major issues, and maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow in time to come we need to find out a solution for a polyester sustainability also, because this is also going to be a critical issue in time to come. Unfortunately, I think the total fiber requirement today 100 million tons. Globally, only 25 million tons comes from cotton, and the rest of the thing has to come from synthetic. Within synthetic, polyester plays an important role. So, industry needs to work on a sustainability, doing necessary research and development work to create recyclability of the fiber what we produce, the textile what we produce, and work out on a reverse chemistry, whether you can convert fiber into again a raw material and reuse that raw material into converting into fiber. So I think these are going to be the new innovations which are likely to take place. India is moving into that direction, and I am sure industry also will work in that direction. Thank you for a patient hearing.
Honorable Minister Smriti Irani ji, Secretary Kapoor ji, Mr. Nair, Mr. Gupta, Mr. Deshi. I'll take only a few minutes, Madam. I want to first of all begin by alerting to you and the audience here that, I'm just reading, that researchers at IIT Kharagpur have discovered a way to generate electricity from drying clothes. आप कपड़े को जब धूप में you are trying to dry the clothes, the Professor Chakravarti of IIT Kharagpur, sorry, Father Chakravarti, yes. Ministry is already ahead of us. But I also want to mention the connection of the cellulosic fiber which makes it possible to convert. I'm just putting a little plug for cellulosic. So I just want to make 4 points, madam, today, and very limited time, and we are looking forward to both the secretary and your remarks. So 4 points, let me just make 4 points. I'll tell you what the 4 points are. First point is about growth and exports. Second point is about fiber neutrality, which all of us have spoken, but it's worth reiterating. Third point is about Turkey. And fourth point is about sustainability. And let's repeat. First point is about growth and exports. Second point is about fiber neutrality. Third point is about Turkey. And fourth point is about sustainability. I'm not claiming that I'm going to cover all the possible topics under the sun as far as textile is concerned. It's an immensely important sector. So number one, growth and exports. See, roti, kapda, makan, this kapda, food, clothing, shelter, this is going to be with us whether it's a recession or not a recession. It's that important industry. And of course, it's important to exports as well. This is an industry which is output, growth, exports, employment, you name it, and tax revenues. So it's going to be important whether we're in a down cycle or up cycle. And I want to just bring to our attention that in the last about 10 years, or maybe 12 years, the share of exports has halved. It went from 24 to 12%. And now slightly regained, I think about 13-14%. So this is, we need to really introspect, why did we lose this big share? Did we just basically do well, but other sectors did amazingly more? No, I don't think so. You know, it used to be that India, with due respect to Mr. Udeshi, only 2% of our exports used to be petrochemicals. Today it's 20% of manufacturing exports are petrochemicals. And what do? We refine them. So it's 10 only, you know, we bring crude oil into the country and we refine it. That cannot be said to be the reason why textiles have fallen behind. So we need to really introspect. Why did it go down from 24% down to half of it? Surely, even if we improve at 3-4%, there's a huge potential. Second point. So this is the growth and exports point. Second point about fiber neutrality. Madam, this has been said many times, and in fact, your own ministry has got a position paper on this, very well articulated, that we need fiber neutrality. We need partisan, no Sotela, what is it called? Stepchild. And this is reflected in global trends, because in the global fashion trends, the consumption trend is 65-35 towards synthetics or man-made. I don't like this word synthetic, man-made. We just have to call spade a spade. It's cotton versus rest of the textiles. And India's domestic mix is 65-35 in the opposite direction. If we don't want it so misaligned, surely we should go thoda the convergence. Pura convergence. I mean, Pura would be ideal, but let's start moving toward that. I know fiber neutrality is hindered by many factors, but I think they're all tackleable. And certainly, it is actually ultimately, I will tell you, in the interest of farmers alone, directly. So let's not use farmers as a shield saying that we are preventing the convergence because of farmers. I gave the example of tobacco to madam that under the guise of protecting farmers, the tobacco also was getting hindered, but that's not just to draw the example, but basically with the emergence of farmer producer organizations, farmer producer controlled value-added companies, imagine farmers becoming shareholders in this textile value chain directly as shareholder. So fiber neutrality, whether it is in terms of the mix of the fiber or in terms of taxation. So here I will again strongly make a pitch. Let's aim for a very simple uniform taxation across the value chain. It will solve the problem of your GST refunds instantly. All those jamila will go away. And this is something we need to strongly pitch, and I think there is alignment between the industry and the ministry and so on. Third point I said was about Turkey. See, we talk a lot about how Vietnam or Bangladesh have overtaken India in terms of absolute dollar value of garment exports. Of course, we forget the point that they have GSP access to USA. The big market is USA. They have straight away 10% advantage. So that's a big factor. So let's acknowledge it. But I'm not using it as an excuse. And then we say we should be lowest cost, we should compete with them on cost. But I would like to suggest, while there is room for cost improvement, there is room for productivity improvement, let us focus on the Turkey model. In Turkey, madam, it's a volatile economy. Their exchange rate goes up and down by 50%. It's always in the geopolitical kind of uncertainty sphere. And yet they have a fantastic record in clothing and textile export, especially ready-made garments. Because they focus on technology, they focus on reliability, they focus on quality, they focus on turnaround time. I think that's really where they score. And therefore, and of course, they don't compete on cost. I'm not saying cost is not important, but we should, if you focus only on lowest cost, so हमेशा हम SME रहेंगे, हमेशा small रहेंगे. If you focus on other things like turnaround time, quality, innovation, technology, I think that's it. So let's look up to Turkey rather than only Bangladesh. I mean, hats off to Bangladesh because 90% of the garment workers are women there. It's led to women empowerment. Ready-made garments is a huge part of Bangladesh's success story. For the last 10 years in a row, they have grown it. So, I mean, not to take away the credit, but I think we need to look at it as a large economy which is 10 times bigger than Bangladesh. It's not only that model. So that's my third point. And last point, madam, is sustainability, which everybody on the dais has already mentioned. So I think we are moving towards sustainable textile. Sustainability is becoming a mainstream issue. You know, about 10-15 years ago, HR used to be a department. Like HR used to be a department, you know, but something that the companies do, maybe 20 years ago. Now HR is mainstream board agenda. That is human resources, their career planning, the incentives, how we treat our workers. It has become mainstream. Similarly, sustainability is moving from just being a department to mainstream. Everything has to be the language of sustainability, where it's not just people, planet, profit kind of language. Are we being water positive in our production? Because, you know, especially the man-made fibers. Are we recyclable, like Mr. Udeshi said? How much of recyclability? How much toxic element? You know, I was telling madam that actually cotton, I know Mr. Raghupalan is here, is now alleged to be equally toxic in terms of the agrochemicals and all that goes in, or the water. So the fourth point I just want to mention is that we have to think in terms of sustainability across the value chain for from agriculture to clothing, to fabric, to clothing, and so on. In fact, there are brands now which are selling at a premium just because they say they are members of the Sustainability Apparel Council globally. There is a very strong council called SAC, and people are now eager to join up and sign up to this council. So, madam, these are my 4 points. So, just to repeat, number 1, growth exports. Second,
I know, Ajitji, I will respond when it's my turn.
Thank you very much. Thank you.